Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Parenting is Easy podcast, where we will discuss the pleasures and the frustrations, the good and the bad, and the rewarding and the troubling aspects of parenting. I am your host, Chananya Abraham, and I'm a psychotherapist that specializes in working with teenagers, young adults, and parents with a specific niche in assisting with communication within the family dynamics. While everyone has their own unique journey and experiences as a parent and as a child, there are many common affiliations and attributes that we can all relate to and share. Together, we will learn from personal stories and experiences from parents across many different backgrounds, cultures, and communities. So get comfortable, grab your glass of coffee, and let's get right into the interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Parenting is Easy, said no one ever. I am your host, Chananya Abraham, and today I am joined by an amazing kids coach, Nic Hamilton, who is from Australia and who will be sharing with us and having a conversation regarding kids, their functioning and developing them and creating kids coaches. There are so many adult coaches and coaches for so many different areas within almost every single field out there. Why not have kids coaches? So that's where Nic Hamilton comes in. And just to give us a little more of her background and how she sort of got into this field in the first place, Nic, can you please explain to us a little bit about who you are and how you got here? And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I the real honor to share the story and get it, far and wide across the seas. I'm here in Adelaide, South Australia. 42, mama bear myself with 3, and kids coaching. It really, I got asked this earlier. It really just happened. It literally fell to me after doing personal development myself from my own journey. And for those that want a deeper information, like I actually came from addiction and mental health, and the medical systems didn't work. So coaches literally gave me the tools and substance to develop my life into where it is today. And every time I learned this new modality, whether it was, in hypnotherapy, energetics, personal development, mindfulness, I was like, wow, this is a game for kids. I can make this fun. Give me a piece of chalk, give me a football, give me something, and I can turn this into a modality that kids can easily absorb and play with. And obviously I brought it home to my kids first. And it just continued to progress. And to the point that now, I got so busy working with children across the nation here in Australia, from Zooms to in person, that I thought I would train others, call in others that have the skill set to work with kids coaches. And kids coaching is so diverse. You said there's so many coaches out there for adults, but it's the same for kids. Not one style fits all. It could be, I've got chefs and teachers and counselors and social workers and other parents and physical trainers, all different, sharing their love and passion and skill set with kids in such a beautiful environment that inspires them to grow and regulate. So yeah, that's a snippet, and you can dive into any part of that and ask away.
Yeah, I think there are so many different parts of it I would like to take apart. Going back to one of the first things you were starting with, of being in a place for yourself that needed help and getting that help, or starting off to try to get that help from the therapeutic world, which is the world that I'm in, and then seeing that wasn't the area that was working for you, and then going towards the coaching area. So maybe you could talk about, from your point of view, someone that I guess you could say has been through the system, and seeing the differences that there are in the therapeutic world as opposed to the coaching world, and how someone can have some sort of maybe checklist to see what is right for them and finding the right help for them, because the right help is out there. The question is where
Correct.
to find that. So what type of guidance would you give someone that is looking for help?
I think, the biggest point is ask for help. That is the hardest part. As soon as you say it out loud, there is help out there. And I always knew in the depths of my addiction. So I was addicted to amphetamine. And as soon as I asked for help, I tried with doctors and psychologists and even the drug and alcohol counselors here in Australia. And a little bit's worked, but a little bit different. And I went from practitioner to practitioner, And some were very inexperienced. They didn't have life skills, and I was inexperienced at having a person to help me. And so I guess I'm super proud of myself, even though those fallbacks and those things that didn't work, I continued to try. And so I have found, great psychologists later on, but in the start, didn't work for me. Even when I had postnatal depression, I had a male counselor, and I probably should have asked for a female, for someone that'd been through it. So I particularly look for people that have life experience. But as it happened, I continued to look, and I went to a beautiful coach who was a holistic healer, and he used, hypnotic language and energetic work. And for me, it just clicked. There was something inside that just lit my soul on fire. And I was like, wow, I need this. Like, this is where I'm going. And so I guess you ask for help. We get to interview the coach, practitioner, whoever that is that you find, until you find the right person. That's the biggest thing, because there is the right person out there for you, and then continue to look. So, um, I think there's beautiful people in all fields, but the thing is just to continue to ask. Whereas we
Right.
get kind of told by the medical system, here's your doctor and here's your psychologist, go. No, let me try a few.
Yes. Yes. I just to say that in language that I use, at least in my office, is finding the therapist that works for you is like finding a house, a spouse, or a pair of shoes. And sometimes you have to try
Mm,
on a few to find the one that works for you. And there's nothing wrong with
yes,
that. Not every person is going to be a soulmate for every person. And I think in the therapy world, it works the same way. Not every therapist is going to be for every client, and vice versa. Not every client is going to be for every therapist. And there's nothing wrong with one party, and hopefully it'll be the person that's seeking the help to be able to say,
correct.
I need someone else. And I, I think it's important for a person to feel empowered to understand that if
Hmm.
you're the one seeking help, if you're the one that is looking for assistance in whatever area in the mental health world it is, to be able to
Yes,
say, this is what I need. And I think different therapists go about it in different ways, or different coaches go about it in different ways. And obviously, therapists, whether their ink is still wet on their degree or they've been around for a long time, uh,
mm,
a lot of them are trying to. A lot of us are trying to build up our practices and to make a name for ourselves. But that doesn't mean that because of that, I have to take on someone or that you have to see me. And I think that's
sure.
a very important part. What would you say to someone that is unsure about if this person is for me, and how they can go about going in and seeing within themselves
Mhm.
of, am I able to work with this person, and do I need something else? Do I need another language, another modality, another type of delivery?
Yeah.
How would someone
So
do that?
good question. Good question. Because I find that there are a lot of practitioners and they don't all work in this similar way. But for me, as the person with integrity, as the practitioner, I actually start off with a free consult. And I specifically do this with kids, because when you're an adult, you are choosing, like you've gone and asked for a mental health plan or you're paying. So that is your energetic yes. And you do have a right to but with kids, I let them interview me. So I don't care if the parent says, I want you, Nicole, you're the one. I say, awesome, let me meet your kid. And I say, you get to interview me. And I discern as well. So if I think that the kid might need somebody else, then I'll say that. But I tell them, you get to pick me. And if I'm the right person for you, then we do session. And their energetic yes means that you can do sessions. And they can ask you anything in that first interview. I guess I do it with adults as well, but I'm more so about empowering the kids, because they don't get to pick their doctor. They don't get to pick their teacher. Then if they pick me, I can do anything in a session. I could be painting fingernails on girls. I could be, if it's still talking and having fun, I could be kicking a football with a boy and, really, getting the primal screams out. When you have a yes, the therapy, the practitioner work opens up into anything. But when you don't have that connection, you're not going to get anywhere with an adult or a child. So that's how I work. I've also worked out if I feel like I'm aligned as well, like if I know somebody that might be better, I think that makes a really good practitioner. But on the reverse, if you're all new to this and you haven't done it, say that to your child or say that to yourself. I get to interview this person from a loving place, like not put them, but I get to interview. And if I feel like it's right, and sometimes it does, it might take a couple of tries and you're like, okay, now I get to know this person. I'm feeling good. And then other times it might just be a no. And that's 100% okay, because any good practitioner will say, I'd rather you be honest with me and you find the right help.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Can you talk for a minute about, we'll get to the parents aspect of how they should go about finding certain help that they may need for a child of theirs, but the differences from your point of view regarding what therapy offers and brings to the table as opposed to what coaching offers and brings to the table.
Wow, so diverse. I think that therapy, somebody who's trained in therapeutic practices can really work on the deep emotional trauma work, can really hold space. They should have an understanding of regulation and really be and well, yeah, they should be an expert in their field. They should have done the work. They should know the outcomes that they can achieve, and that's the kind of things that we're looking at in the testimonials and the clients. A coach is very diverse. You can have a coach for physical fitness. You can have a coach for um, mental health. You could have a coach for uh, anything in between. You know, you can have a business coach. You can have like for me, it's kids coaching and kids coaching. We get to play and do all sorts of things with kids. So it's coaching is very diverse and multi skill set. So you really just need to feel like what's right for you. In the coaching world, they bring a lot of personal development as well as their other skill sets as well. Um, but yeah, there's a difference between therapy, and some coaches are trained in therapy as well, and they cross over. But yeah, coaching can be, I just need a coach to make me walk around the block. I don't know. I need a coach to help me energetically heal. I might want a spiritual coach. I might want an intuitive coach. There's this. The string is so long when it
Yeah.
comes to coaching.
Yeah,
The therapist.
and I think there are a lot of differences, but I think there is a lot of overlap as well. And I think it's important for each professional to know what their boundaries are and to know what they
Correct.
are able to do, and also just as, if not more important, what they are not able to do. So I think that's
Correct.
something that, from the professional's point of view, I can say, hopefully that's always something that we are keeping in check, that you are keeping in check regarding what the role is. But I'm curious to hear from someone that's working with kids, when a parent is looking for assistance for their child,
Mhm.
what are the questions that they should be asking to find the right help for their child in that situation that they're dealing with?
Mm. Good question. Every kid is so different. I guess I'd be looking at the needs where the kid is feeling that they need help with. And so, number one, check in with your child. Your child actually knows. So, where do you think you need some help? The teacher's given me this information, or I've noticed this, but what would you like to work on? Because there's no point dragging your child to a therapist or to somewhere that they don't want to go. A child will be like, oh, actually, yeah, I do need help tying my shoelaces and balancing. Cool. Then we might go look for an OT and, someone that's going to help with those types of things. Or, actually, I'm really angry. Like and then you've got a whole range of things. Like, oh, I'm going to look for behavioral specialists. And then that could be therapy or it could be coaching because, we have a lot of holistic practices in coaching. But really working out with it's a joint effort. When your child is younger and they don't have that ability to articulate, so if we're talking about younger children, obviously let them energetically connect. Like you will see if your child wants to be in that practitioner's room or with a person, you can see. And so you've got to advocate for your child. But when they're older, from even 4 and 5 up, you can start having these little conversations like, hey, how did you feel about this person? Do you want to go back? Is this right? Because I'm going to keep working with you until we find the right thing. And I think that's the best thing is that continual negotiation. And the other thing is with parents, it's like, hey, I can see you're struggling with this and I don't know how to help. So we're going to do it together. We're a team. I'm going to ask for help as well. And we're going to learn together because I don't know. I don't know how to do that. And then it also takes a load off of you're angry. You're this. We need to fix you. I don't know either. I get angry too. Let's go together.
Right.
Makes it a lot nicer.
Wow. So there's a lot that you're saying there that I would love to unpack. First, I think you talk about the parents' fallibility and them their children seeing within the parent that, hey, I'm also normal. I also get upset.
Mhm,
I also lose my cool
mhm,
sometimes. I also get scared or have an anxiety or have stress, and I don't know what to do with myself sometimes. And I think that goes a very long
Mhm.
way for children to see that within their caregivers. And when
Yeah.
that, I think the biggest thing that I took out from what you were just saying are the two things of collaboration and communication. I think two words that come up on
Yes.
this podcast a lot, of communicating with your child, communicating with the coach or the therapist to be able to say, this is
Yeah.
working, this is not working, this is what's been going on, this is what the last week was like. And that's a very important
Mhm.
point when it comes to any sort of assistance that parents are looking to get for their child, and collaborating as well. You talk about uh,
Mhm.
everyone being on the same page and everyone coming into it, because at least one of the things that I say in my room, at least within the first one or two sessions that we're going to meet, is coming to a therapy session, coming to a coaching session would be similar to if someone's getting some sort of tutor for an instrument. You're going to see that person
Yeah.
an hour a week, and then there's going to be work to do outside the room that is going to be
Mm.
probably more important than the work we're going to do inside
Mhm.
the room, because that's where the actual work is going to get done when you're not in this room. So there's another 6 days and 23 hours that you're going to have to work. That's probably going to be more important than what we do here in this room. So when you have a little child, and when you collaborate with the parents, that creates that 623 rule where you're going to be working on those things, because a lot of times kids are not able to articulate things back to the parents, or they're not going to be able to try to work on those things that are supposed to be worked on during the week without the parents' assistance. So having that collaboration
Yeah.
is so important, and I think probably vital in a certain way,
Yeah, it is.
when it comes to the work that needs to get done with the child. Are there specific questions that a parent, I guess two part here, that a parent should be asking, but the coach, when it comes to, okay, so I know these are the goals, this is what we're trying to work on, but trying to implement that back at home is very different than what's done in the office. So I'm curious how the parents can approach that in a way where they're getting the information that they need, but yet at the same time also
Mhm.
respecting the boundaries for what's done in the room as opposed to what's done at home. What type of questions can they ask?
Beautiful. Beautiful question. I come at it from the other way. So I always say to the child, what we say in our room is confidential. Then nothing goes back to your parent unless I have your permission. And obviously we have our mandated stuff as well still, but I let them know that. And then what I do is to keep their rapport and keep their confidence and the flow going, is saying, but I will always ask you if we work on something and you get a breakthrough, you learn something, I will ask you, can we share that with your parent? Your caregiver, your parent. And that gets okay. I'm like, oh my God, you worked through this anxiety and you got to calm today. Can we share that? Can we share that little piece with your parent? And so they're still included as well. And then we're also not breaking confidence. And then the other way that I'll do it is like maybe 5 minutes at the end is like, oh my God, we learned that practice today. Can you show me and you teach your parent so that I know you can still do it? And so then you're including the parent. Like this is the practice for the following week. I've suggested that we do this breathing, or we do this positive language, or we say whatever we're grateful for, whatever the thing is. And that includes it that way. And so I get the child to teach the parent, and that is their thing, because then they're also, it's not, I have to do homework. I'm teaching somebody else. I'm teaching my siblings. I'm teaching this. And also sharing it in a really loving way. Like, oh my God, I had this win today. And I want to share what we learned in the room.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think when we talk about someone knowing a certain concept or a behavior or a trait that they're trying to work on, when they know to the point where they're able to go ahead and explain it to others, that is the ultimate form of understanding for self, because that
Yeah.
allows you to be so confident in it that you can now communicate it to others. So when you empower a child to be able to give over the things that were processed and talked about within the session, when they go home and they start implementing things, or they're teaching things to others, like you said, to their siblings or to parents, I think that goes a very long way, just the way in the overall confidence they're going to have in self based on the amount
Correct.
that they are going to be able to retain within them.
It's so different than doing a handover and saying, hey, your child did this. You can see a child kind of fall back because they're being spoken about. When you are alongside them and celebrating with them, like, oh my God, we learned this thing. It was so amazing. Or, you know, I was really proud about the honesty that was shared, or something like that. When you're alongside and celebrating whatever's come up, comfortable or uncomfortable. It's really powerful. So again, it's always coming back to that empowerment part of it, because that's going to inspire them to continue to do the work.
So when you have a situation where, and to no fault of their own, where there's a resistance to what's being taught, whether it's because of, let's say, a deeper trauma, or let's say just because, well, they've had a bad day, how
Mhm.
would that work within the, I'm calling it a therapeutic setting, but I mean within the coaching room, that will enable you to
Yeah.
still have progress within the room, but also taking into consideration the current situation.
Yeah. I don't have a agenda with kids. I let them bring it to me. So, for instance, I had, an idea of maybe what I would be bringing up in a session, and that goes out the window. I've had a kid come in who was being quite violent with their mother. They just was not coping. I was like, all right, that session's out the window. Mom, you go. We're running. So I literally took this kid to the park and I ran and we breathed and we did primal screams. So honestly, for me, a kids coach is fun because you never know what's going to happen. But I don't live inside four walls. I discern what's coming up for that child, and we go with that. So if they come in dysregulated, we dysregulate together, and then we come back together. And I go with them and lead and I go
Right.
with and you play. And then if I've got a child that's resistant and doesn't want to talk, and maybe a teenager that's going through some stuff, I give them permission. You don't want to talk today? Cool. Would you like just to play a game? But respect their emotions and their humanness, and don't have an expectation, because then they will feel comfortable enough to come back.
Yeah. I think respect, like it's well known, is something earned and not given, and it doesn't just apply from people that are younger than us to us as adults. It applies the other way around as well, and I think it's something that's felt, and children can feel, teenagers can feel when they're being respected, and there's like invisible wall that sort of dissipates just by that being given to them, and it creates, I think, the ultimate bond when it comes to that relationship between the therapist, between the coach, when you're able to bring down those walls and do it organically, like you're talking about. When it
Yeah.
comes to, I hate saying the word, but maybe because of my trauma behind it, but we talk about homework and we talk about things that need to be
Mm.
done at home. What is the balance between whatever else a child has going on in their school life and at home, and also the work that you're trying to give, which is really to implement and make life changing changes? So what's that balance of being able to do that in a healthy way?
Yeah, see, I have trauma related to homework too. I don't like it. I think it's ridiculous. Yeah, I think that we should be families and kids and connection and the rest. So I don't have an attachment to homework. I know that if they're showing up for their sessions every week or fortnightly, then that is their commitment, that it is integrating in. Um, so I will just ask for their week. And like the other thing I wanted to mention as well is that I think being a coach rather than, depending on boundaries and the rest, but being a therapist, you can have a bit more of an intimate connection with the coach. So I can be a role model. I can talk about my addiction. I can talk about the things that I've gone through. Whereas in professional, when I worked for big companies and other things, you're not allowed to sometimes. You're not allowed to be a person. You actually have to be like, I'll hold space for you, but you can't know anything about me. And so as a coach, I can really inspire and go, hey, I've had, depending with parents' permission as well, by the way, I don't tell everybody everything about my life. But with parents' permission, I can talk about having a wife. I can talk about having depression. I can talk about suicidal thoughts. I can talk about addiction. I become a real life role model. And so sometimes that's what's needed. And, them to feel the humanness that I am. And that's what I bring as a coach, that humanness. And yeah, they can message me in between. And so that's the other
Mm.
thing as well with being a coach. I allow kids to message me, depending on the age as well, so that I have that and I can see when they're doing the work. They send me something, and it is a bit more of a connected approach. So, but yeah, as far as attachment, I guess I just catch up every week or fortnight, see where they're at, and allow them to play with it, because there's nothing like being told. Someone tells you to do something, there's an automatic resistance.
Yeah, I think that could say a lot with what they're dealing with at home and how they go about trying to implement things that are being taught to them. I think that would be a real statement regarding how they're treating what the work that you're doing by them not doing certain things, and how they go ahead and live with that. So, you talked a lot about, the concept of what coaching is, and what the process is, and how we can find the right person for the right child. I'm curious when it
Mm,
comes to the other kids in the family and
mm,
parents dealing with a coach that specializes in this type of work, that is working with a child to be able to be a better version of themselves. But yet at the same time,
mhm.
having other children at home sometimes can be a little bit tricky. And as someone that has multiple kids, I'm sort of curious to hear from you. What is that balance, and how can parents not only take note and become aware of, but work with having multiple children within a family dynamics, that one or maybe more children are receiving assistance outside of the house?
Yeah. Good question. Because I do have kids that have siblings and multiple you know, things that are coming up in their world. Um, I always love, particularly myself, a style of family therapy. So I opt for that, in sessions, if that particular child wants to have a session with their mother, with their father, with their sister, with their brother. When I first started out, I actually used to go into rooms. I don't have time now. They all come to me. But I would go into homes, and sometimes I would end up with siblings on my lap, and we ended up doing sessions together. I'm all about, because the education has to filter through the whole family. And so when we're talking about emotions and games and strategies, it's great to share those things. And when it comes up multiple times, I will always ask the child if they wanted to do, a session together, or the parent, to build those connections back up, to have that mediator, because communications do get, um, misunderstood. So I call myself a kids coach, but no, family therapist really, if
Right.
it comes
No,
to it.
that makes a lot of sense. So, you've also talked a little bit about being able to train others, and being training kids to become coaches. I'm curious, what does that look like from, here we are as outsiders sitting with you as someone that's in the trenches dealing with it.
Mm.
So what does it look from the other side, from Nick's side, regarding what the work is and what it entails, and what can we as parents learn from that angle in this picture?
Um, so sorry, me training others to be kids coaches, and then what
Right,
that
yeah,
looks like.
w 2 parts to that. First, yes, regarding, you training others, and also from the role of a coach, and from the role of someone that is sitting there with kids. What does it look like different from your point of view into the lives of parents, and what is it that you're assessing and you're looking at and you're seeing, as opposed to what we're seeing coming into your office?
Yeah, beautiful. Um, so for me training others, like kids coaching is so variable. It is, it's not like, okay, sit down and with the therapy, we have a certain curriculum and style and what we're kind of looking for and what we're looking with kids. It's here. So that's what I'm looking for coaching. It's like, what is your alignment? What is your passion? And what could you bring and teach children? And so, like I mentioned before, like I have nurses and counselors and psychologists and teachers that have left the education system, and then parents as well that still have skill set because they've dealt with, you know, multiple children with disabilities. So they have skills. So kids coaching is so variable depending on that particular family and what they're needing. So if they're looking for deep therapy work, then obviously you go to a coach or a therapist that has that skill set. If you're looking for emotional regulation, but it's in the form of, like, you might have a lot of ADHD kids in your home, you might need people that are very fit and want to do fitness and outdoors and regulating and that kind of thing. So you've got to discern what's right for you in your family as to what comes in. Here in Australia, we have a beautiful system called NDIS. So I leverage that, and it's a disability insurance scheme. And so we have a lot of families that do have funding for their kids with diagnosis. And so that can come into so many different things. It can be social participation, taking them out, teaching them. So it's very variable what you could be looking for as a coach. Um, and that's what I train in. Like, I really want people to live there. We're all here to serve, and everybody has a different skill set in that area. And that can come into coaching people into the best human they can be, because every kid's skill set is different. We want to bring the best out in them. As a parent looking in, I would like you to think outside the box, because, we've been taught education, reading, writing. We've been taught medical system, let's medicate. And we've been taught, maybe we've been taught therapy still a little, we haven't really decided yet, I suppose, as this conscious parenting, but do kids need therapy? Do they have emotions? Well, actually, yeah, they do. And so then as a parent, you need to have a look and have a feel of what is right for your family. So you might be a single mom and you're like, I need a positive male role model in my life that's, once a week that comes in and teaches my kid how to change the oil in the car or does whatever. Coaching is very variable. But yeah, from a parent's point of view, how can I best serve my child, and what else do I think that they need? And then by asking these questions of the therapist, of the coach, and finding, you will get a sense of what you need. So for me, I'm always asking. I'm always listening. I've always got a podcast in my ear. I'm always thinking about different things. And that's why I'm loving this conversation. I didn't realize I had all this information inside of me. I really didn't, but it's because I've continued to stay in this field and continue to ask the questions. I'm a mum first as well. I advocate for my kids. And some days, I was deeply depressed. I didn't have the energy, but I found it somewhere. And it's that continual looking. I think that when you start diving into the coaching and therapy world, you get so much support. It really helps you become a better parent, because you've got that community, that network, that support.
For sure. Yeah.
I hope that
Big
answers
time.
your
Big time. Yeah.
question.
There's so many things that you said really resonated with me there, Nick. Um, the first thing that really comes to mind is something a mentor of mine has talked about, and we've talked about it here on this podcast many times, of the concept of ABC, and always be curious, and how important that is, of being able to ask the questions like, what's going on? How am I feeling? And sometimes asking yourself the question for what's happening within you, I think is maybe even more important than finding out what's happening with your children. That doesn't mean that you love your children less, but like all the signs say,
Hello.
when you're on an airplane, you first put on your mask before you put on the one for your child. And I think there's a certain aspect that is very
Yes.
important within self to take care of self. And I think something else that you were just talking about that I think is very, very important is when we're talking about being able to get into this world and help our kids, finding the help that the child needs, not what we think the child needs. And I think that's a very, very
Mm.
important part regarding all this work that we're doing, and finding the help and getting the child whatever help it is that they needed, whether it's coaching for the oil or coaching for a temper, whatever it is, finding the
Mm.
help that the child needs is of the utmost important here. And there is no right way, or there is no the way. There is the way that works for your child. There's a way that works for your area, and I think that's a very, very important point that I really want to emphasize when we talk about the concept of getting help, that there is no one size fits all. There is what works for you, and that's a very, very important part over here. And one more thing, what you were just saying that really I think is important when we talk about the growth within self. I would say, as a therapist, and something that I hope I live by, and something that I tell some of my patients that I have deeper relationship with, maybe even I say this to my wife as well, is that if you feel there's a day that I'm not growing as a therapist, tell me, because that's the day I need to retire. And I think when it comes to coaching, it works
And
the same way. When we're not learning and we're not
correct.
gaining and growing, whether it's from our experiences within our offices, whether the offices are on the playground or actually on a chair, or whether they're at home as being a parent, the second I think we stop growing, we as in the practitioners, the parents, that's time to reassess. Okay, what am I doing here, and what's the goal? And I think that's a very, very
Correct.
important part. So thank you for talking about that. There was something you mentioned at the beginning that I want to get back to, when you were talking
Yeah,
about
good.
implementing things at home. When you started off this coaching training. So
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about what that was like, and how were you able to, in a very healthy way, deal with the issues that were
Mm.
happening at home, because you are a parent and things happen at home
Yes.
and it's very normal. and being able to go ahead and say, okay, I learned this, and maybe I could apply something for that I'm trying to coach at professionally, but use that at home in a way where I'm not coach, but I'm still mom. I'm still able to go ahead and do the things properly within
Correct.
within the home situation.
Yeah, I love that. So my boys were little when I first started this world. They were 4 and 7, and they're nearly 14 and 17 now. And I've got a 3-year-old as well. So the parenting style that I use for my 3-year-old is so different. Um, so first, I want to really reiterate as well that you said about, parents there, learning this stuff. Sometimes you said if we're not growing, not learning, I would say embodying. If I'm not embodying the work and actually going first, then I can't be preaching it. I can't be a coach. So I need to continue to do that work. Parents also ask me sometimes, is it too late? Is it too late? For me, I'm like, never, it doesn't matter if your child's 3 or 30. If they see a change in you and they see a growth in you, you're being such a beautiful role model that shifts their their world as well. It does heal them as well. So when we heal as a parent and work on our stuff, that resonates through to our children. And sometimes we feel selfish by making time for filling our cup and the rest. So it is really important. You would first advocate, you'd be like, okay, my kid needs this. But as a good, coach or your therapist, you find that the teaching that you're teaching those children will help the parents as well. So I highly recommend that parents continue the work themselves with that to fill their cup. I know the days that I'm not being a good parent is the days that my cups are very empty and I can get frustrated and snappy and not behave. But what happened was the more I learned from personal development, the better language that I had to bring home to my children. And I could play games and ask better questions. And so when I went through divorce, my eldest son was very angry, very angry. And as a parent to see that, it's so disheartening. But I put my coach hat on. I was like, wow, where did this come from? Why is he so angry? And you can always deal with the anger that is now, or you can ask and show, where did it come from? And so what happens is most therapies work on the now sometimes, but in our humanness in our body, we store it from birth, from past life, depending on your belief system, we store it in our nervous system. And so I literally asked my 7-year-old just a quick question. I said, when was the first time you were angry? No pre-framing, no, no things. I just asked the right person. And he said, when I was stuck in your tummy, and he clenched his hand. And I was like, really? And he was breech. He had a rocky birth. Like,
Oh.
he had to be a cesarean. And literally at 7, I just asked the right question. When was the first time you're angry? I said, cool. What do we need to know so that we can release that anger? And so ask like just a couple of personal development questions that I learned makes me all the better parent because I had the capacity to ask the right question in that moment. Do I always at the right time? He's a teenager now. God, no, he's giving me grief at the moment. He's got some hormones, but I still can unpack with him later. Like I have that skill set. So that's how I kind of learned with my own kids that this stuff is so important to be able to have the ability to unpack and ask the right questions because kids have got the answer. We all have the answers inside of us. It's learning the techniques to ask and realize that some of the words that we use and the things that we've been taught from our parents do not serve us. Off you go. Don't cry. All those things. You're so clumsy. Those things store in our kids and then become their stories. And so that's why I'm so passionate about learning personal development and teaching coaches to help the kids and the teachers to help the kids and the parents because I didn't know what I didn't know. And so that's why, yeah, for me, it's a,
Yeah,
it's
I
a
love it.
big
I
mission.
think everything you're saying is really really important. I think for me to hear, and hopefully some of my listeners over here as well. Are there certain things? Because I think you and I could talk for probably, well, over here it's already in the
We
evening,
could
but for you, you're just starting out your day. So we could probably talk until the end of your day today, based on different things that we've been talking
probably
about.
could.
Are there maybe one or two things that you usually would talk about as a kids coach that maybe we haven't touched on today as we sort of wind down?
I believe in apologizing, like setting an example for your kids. I mean, even as a coach, as a parent, some people might be a new concept for it because we need to set that example. We need to go first. And sometimes as parents, we think, oh, my kid's, lacking in this area. Here, I'll get the tutor or I'll get the coach and I'll go, they can fix that. No, we kind of need to understand us. And so I think that by setting a really beautiful, honest, vulnerable relationship with your kids, it sets that example. So if I apologize, say I yelled, hey, and then they might yell, "Well, we need to both do better." Um, so I think that that's super important as a parent. Um, just having that understanding. I believe in beautiful, honest communication with your kids. I give them a way out. So for me, I always say to my boys, and Aurora as she gets older, but I will never get angry at you if you're honest with me. Doesn't matter what you've done. I'll have your back. I might have boundaries and there might be repercussions after, but I'll never be angry at you for being honest. So I really believe in cultivating that. And I also believe in telling them things that are at their level so that they feel safe. I remember in my childhood, if my parents argued and they're like, don't worry about it, adult stuff, I felt more unsafe. So really treating our kids as little humans. Hey, yeah, I'm having a grumpy day, but it's okay. I'm going to go get some help. I'm going to go cool down. We're going to work on it, but you're okay. So I believe in all that open communication is so important
Yes.
to help them regulate and feel
I love
safe
that.
in the
I
home.
love that. And the one thing that I was thinking about as you were saying this is, sometimes kids might have younger children might have a mispronunciation of a word based on whatever it is that they hear, whether it's, do you want to say good night? And they'll say night night. And now that becomes a new word when it's time to go to sleep. They'll say night night. And in their heads, developmentally, they're thinking that they're saying it the right way. And now it becomes a new way because we created a language differently than them in a certain way. Not that, it's different, but I think what you're
Mhm.
talking about really, really resonates with me when you're saying speaking the language for the child and treating them like not only do they want to be treated, but like they should be treated. And as human beings and not just these little species called kids. And I think when you have that language, it goes a very, very long way. But as we sort of wrap it up for today, I just want to throw a few little rapid fire questions for today. So I'm curious if you don't mind sharing, if you're comfortable with it, either a funny, embarrassing, or hysterical story that happened with you being a parent.
Guess you did ask me this, and the one that drops in first is I think I even put it on my stories. I was having a minute. Um, I was at capacity. I think it was a morning trying to get kids ready. Aurora was only little and she used to not crawl, she used to bum shuffle. So she used to pull herself along. And I was outside trying to get things done, get the kids to school. And as she had followed me outside, she had butt shuffled through dog poo. And it was just the worst timing. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get my camera and show everybody that I'm real, that I'm raw, that I'm frustrated. Like, what the hell? And I got so many laughs and posts because I was losing my marbles. It was not a good morning. But I love that vulnerable.
Right.
This stuff happens. If you lose your shit, that's okay. You got to laugh about it. You got to share it. And I'm a human being too. So yeah, those things. My life's crazy too sometimes, and I dysregulate too. And I think that makes me a really good coach too. That to share for it. But yeah, I
Wow.
will never forget that morning. That
So
morning was just crazy.
that's a really good one. Oh man, I'm picturing it. I have had a similar story with poo and a crib, and oh man, what a mission. But yeah, okay. Thank you for the memory. I'm curious if you would recommend either a book or a podcast or maybe a YouTube video follower that you would share that maybe has helped you along this journey of both being a coach and a parent. Something that you have really learned from.
Mm, so many, so many. Um, I guess my favorite at the moment that I listened to that was really, really helpful was Brene Brown, articulating our emotions. I love to listen to audiobooks. I'm super busy. Um, and so that one just really, I think that's something that any adult can listen to because if we're talking about our emotions and giving them, there's so many, we only use a few of them. there's so many, if we really understand how they relate to our body and say them out loud, we don't realize the power that starts healing. And then that can be taught to children. So yeah, I would highly recommend. I don't even know the actual name of it.
So as you're looking it up, and I'm
That is
curious
brilliant.
if you would be given for one day a mundane, regular superpower to assist in your parenting, what would that be?
A mundane or
Atlas of the
it was
Heart.
called
That's her most
Atlas of
recent
the
book.
Heart,
Thank
by
you
the
for
way.
that.
Yeah. A mundane superpower.
That would assist in your parenting.
Yeah, the ability to be present all the time.
Enough said. You don't have to say anything else. That's an awesome one.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. But yeah, this is wow. That thank you for sharing that. And I think that your answer really shows the work that you're trying to do, both as a parent and as a coach. And hopefully that's something that will continue to be impacting lives for a very long time. I really appreciate a few minutes over here, Nic. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Hey again. I hope you were able to learn as much as I did today. Thank you so much for staying to the end and listening to the entire interview. Please feel free to leave a comment wherever you listen to this podcast. All comments will be read weekly, and we appreciate all feedback and ideas. If you have an idea for a guest or a specific topic, please feel free to share. Additionally, you can contact us at parentingiseasypodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's parentingiseasypodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for joining today, and remember, parenting is a journey. Don't forget to enjoy it. The goal is to be a little better today than yesterday, and hopefully better tomorrow than we were today.